Hey guys, all content discussed in this channel is due diligence gathered with aim at better understanding the nature of the current market in anticipation of the greatest squeeze in financial history. Let's dive right in. Today we are going to talk about the greatest sham that happened in modern history. It is a tale of how a company made up a term to successfully deceive the masses and shift blame onto individuals and away from themselves. In 1971, nonprofit group Keep America Beautiful released a 1-minute TV ad that had a man toss a bag of trash from a moving car. The garbage spills on the moccasins of a Native American, who then looks at the camera and sheds a tear. The message is simple: the world has become careless and ugly, and there is no decency in disposing of trash in the correct manner. This commercial was built with the intention of promoting the belief that pollution is your fault, and therefore your problem. Keep America Beautiful, the nonprofit group that made the commercial, was actually funded by companies who were polluting the world with billions of plastic bottles every year. Coca-Cola, Pepsi and many others were giving this nonprofit funds so that they could make these commercials to set a certain narrative in people. Other commercials would come out later in time, trying to impress upon people different types of pollution and placing blame on common-day folk. For example, in the year 2000, a campaign came out bringing to attention heat-trapping carbon pollution, shifting away blame from all the companies that were drilling deep into the earth for and selling carbonaceous fuels. British Petroleum, who has over 18,700 gas stations in the world, hired public relations professions to promote the slant that climate change is not their fault but rather that of the individuals. It was this promotion that coined and popularized the term carbon footprint. BP would soon release their carbon footprint calculator, which was used to assess how people's normal day life, like going to work or school, the food they buy and how often they travel, how all of these things responsible for heating up the globe. It didn't take long for the media to pump this calculator out. Years later, the EPA has a carbon calculator. The New York Times is suddenly making guides on what people can do to better reduce their carbon footprint. All types of brands appealing to sensationalism began picking up the term to advertise their products. As Benjamin Franta, who researches law and history of science at Stanford Law School said, "This is one of the most effective PR campaigns ever made." The thing that makes this PR campaign so successful is that it guilts people into even questioning it. Why would anyone even argue the notion of reducing their own carbon footprint at all? That is what made this PR move by BP so extraordinarily successful. However, new evidence is emerging that this carbon footprint is and has always been a sham. I mean, what else would you expect from this oil conglomerate, the second largest non-state-owned oil company in the world, when in 2020, 2 years ago, they were caught leaking hundreds of millions of gallons of oil into the Gulf of Mexico? No wonder why they want to blame you for polluting and heating up the planet. They need someone to paint a target. The best evidence there has actually happened from the pandemic. You see, when the pandemic hit, people were confined to their homes. Due to quarantine mandates, people were, as BP would put it, drastically slashing out individual carbon footprint because we were not commuting to work in cars or airplanes. The problem for BP is that the amount of heat-trapping carbon dioxide saturating in the atmosphere was still swelling the atmospheric bank accounts. In fact, the levels of carbon dioxide in Earth's atmosphere peaked at an all-time high in May of 2020. The carbon footprint sham, and especially the calculator, are manipulation tools designed to shift blame away from one of the greatest environmental threats of our time. BP has gone so far to build this rhetoric that they have even made a low-carbon diet calculator too, as if this couldn't get any more ridiculous. The company is booming, making huge investments and finding ways to dispose of waste cheap, even if it means dumping it into the environment. The incredibly sinister and effective way their ploy has had so much success all falls in the psychology of the PR. Psychologically speaking, says John Cook, who is a cognitive scientist at the Center for Climate Change Communications at George Mason University, we are not built for big global transformations that are hard to wrap our head around. You see, carbon footprints give people something to ostensibly do about climate change. No person can slash 1 billion tons of carbon dioxide emissions, but we can throw a little plastic bottom into a recycling bin, or carpool to work, or as BP put it on their website, we can eat a low-carbon diet and skip delicious cheeseburgers. The marketers for BP, Ogilvy and Mather, implemented an impossible challenge. They used manipulative tactics to make something like carbon dioxide or methane intangible, because they are invisible. But used the key word footprint, because it is your footprint, and therefore easier for people to fall prey to their scheme. They have worked hard to remove themselves as a contributor to the problems of climate change by using careful linguistic and psychological tricks. So how do we defeat and start fighting back? It is hard, and right now impossible by practical standards, to simply dump the word carbon footprint. BP has had too much success with it to the point that just forgetting and moving past it would prove impossible. Instead, what we can do is expand the meaning behind the word carbon footprint far beyond what BP would want. When talking about carbon footprints, people should also know or recognize how to curb the planet's warming. People should know that not all actions are the same, and we should place greater emphasis on what are the biggest contributors causing global warming and bring BP's name into the question. Voting is perhaps the biggest and most powerful action we can take too. Leaders who have plans to slash the rampant flow of fossil fuels through the economy should be looked at and heard. As of late, we have seen an emergence in electric vehicles. This is a huge step for mankind. There are various effects that sort of spread, sort of like social contagion. For example, multiple studies show that when someone installs solar panels on their roof, their neighbors are more likely to begin installing panels too. The Earth is warming up too fast, and scientists have a very grim outlook for the future. While we are beginning to boil, BP is working hard to maximize profits and wants you to be blamed for disrupting the balanced climate we once had. Remember when tobacco companies blamed smokers for becoming addicted to addictive carcinogenic products? This is the same thing but with oil and global warming. Do not fall prey to their lies and marketing. The reason the Earth is where it is solely due to their destructive nature. And with that, I wrap this video up. It was a very unusual video, but one that goes to show how evil and corrupt these companies are. This is the same psychology that all the elite and people running the markets in Wall Street have. They have little to no long-term vision, they only care about themselves in the short term. I just want to instill in your guys some perspective. Let me know what you think in the comments below, and that is all I have for you guys. Thank you for making it to the end of the video if you are still here. Be sure to come on over and join the Discord for an even more engaging experience with fellow investors. We have tons of things there, from conversations about GameStop and AMC to day trading alerts, so give it a try. Links will be down in the video description. Thank you again for being a part of this channel. I will continue striving for better content. Enjoy the rest of your day. Keep on buying the dip and to the moon.